The sea kept its secrets below the surface, but the surface itself trembled with a promise. A single decision could tilt the fate of nations. In the gray hours before battle, a handful of sailors faced a tide that refused to choose sides, their courage a bright thread weaving through the knot of chaos. The last light at Lady Gulf. Dawn on Lady Gulf arrived not with triumph, but with a heavy, salt-tang stillness. On the bridge of a weathered destroyer, Captain Mara Vance stood like a lighthouse against a shifting dark, the horizon a bleak, unyielding line. The crew moved with quiet efficiency, each man and woman performing a ritual of readiness, the click of toggles, the hum of engines warming, the careful calculation of fuel and distance. Mara had learned long ago that leadership on the edge of war is a choreography of restraint and audacity. The mission was simple in its aim yet brutal in its execution. Protect the landing forces, hold the line, and buy time for a fleet that could vanish into the fog of war at a moment's notice. The plan required precision, and precision demanded trust in a map that might lie, trust in the hearts beating beneath the helmets, and trust in a sea that would not yield its secrets easily. Her navigator, a young officer named Eli Navarro, broke the hush with a whispered report from the radar deck. "Currents are shifting, ma'am. The wind isn't friendly, and the night isn't done talking." Mara met his glance with a measured nod. "Then we listen closely," she replied, "and we respond with certainty. No improvisation when time is thin." The fleet's edge of battle was not a line of gleaming steel, but a web of decisions, every thread taut with consequence. Signal lamps flickered, charts bore creases from countless folds, and the breathing of the ship sounded in rhythm with the heartbeat of a nation. Mara could feel the weight of history pressing down the moment when a few stubborn choices could preserve a future others would fight to reclaim. Beyond the horizon, the enemy stirred with patient resolve. A three-pronged plan Shogo sought to trick the American commanders into chasing shadows, while a more devastating strike pressed toward Lady's beaches. The central and southern fleets moved like dark serpents through the Sibuyan Sea and Surigao Strait, while a northern carrier group, seemingly bold and loud, served as a decoy to draw away the strongest American forces. On Mara's side, every voice in the radio room carried a different tone, some crisp with confidence, others strained with fatigue. The ship's cook hummed a tune to steady, trembling hands. A radio man clung to a stubborn hope that flickered like a candle in the wind. The world was a chessboard, but the pieces moved with unpredictable cunning, and the clock was always the enemy. Night brought the first collisions of iron and will. The Japanese southern force pressed through Surigao Strait, moving as if guided by the sea's indifferent gravity. Mara watched the silhouettes on the radar, pale outlines against the glow of a distant flame from a distant bomb line. The air thrummed with the sound of aircraft, the staccato percussion of anti-aircraft guns, and the faint, constant murmur of men speaking in guarded tones, each word a thread in the fabric of endurance. Her crew responded with the practiced grace of sailors who have learned to convert fear into method. The gunners found their rhythm. The torpedoes found their marks. The captain's orders found a corridor of certainty amid chaos. The sea did not yield, but it did reveal. A battle is as much about timing as it is about firepower, about who holds their nerve when the night breathes on them like a cold hand. In the north, the decoy carrier force under Ozawa staged its drama, drawing Halsey's third fleet away from Lady. The risk was immense. Remove the main battle fleet from the theater and risk leaving the landing zones vulnerable to a sudden strike. It was a gamble that could either crown the attacker's success or birth a pivotal slip in Japan's strategy. For Mara, the decision was simpler and harder at once. Keep the line, protect the transports, and trust in the structure of the plan that had brought together bravest spirits for this exact hour. The most harrowing moment came with the emergence of a small line of escort ship steam can destroyers, lightly armored but heavy with resolve. They moved like a chorus of brave stanzas in a poem that could end with a single brutal line. In a dance of patience and daring, these ships launched torpedoes, closed with larger targets and forced the enemy into a missteps and misreads. Each maneuver was a small victory, each near miss a reminder of how fragile victory could be when weighed against so much loss. As the battle roared toward an apex of sound and flame, the sea's vast breast seemed to hold at length. Mara's line, a ring of steel guarding the vulnerable transports, pressed inward to buy a fraction more time for the landing forces. The Japanese fleet, vast and gleaming with the memory of former glory, found themselves pressed by a wall they could not break. The turning point was not a single blow, but a cascade of decisions. A captain's steady hand, a navigator's quiet confidence, a gunnery crew's disciplined aim. Then came the moment that history would remember as the hinge of Lady Gulf. Kurita's central force, confronted with the sight of American battleships and cruisers arrayed like a trap waiting to snap shut, found its path blocked by stubborn resistance and unmistakable courage. A sense of inevitability whispered through the night air, but it was answered by a louder, immutable will and insistence that the line would hold, that the landing would not falter, that Lady would become a turning page in the Pacific War. The end of the night. Dawn did not arrive with fanfare, but with quiet relief. The waters around Lady bore the weight of what had been achieved: a successful landing, the preservation of a critical foothold, and the erosion of Japan's capacity to wage a major surface war. The sea's record would mark the endurance of a force that, against overwhelming odds, found a way to stand firm and empty the night of its darkest hours. Mara stood again on the deck as the sun's pale light spread across the water. The crew, exhausted but unbroken, gathered in small circles to count the cuts and bruises of the night's fight, to pay tribute to the brothers and sisters who would never come home, and to acknowledge the triumph of a line held against a tide that would not be swayed. Weeks, months, and years would pass, and Lady Gulf would grow into legend, a symbol of modern naval warfare's complexity. Air power versus surface fleets, deception against discipline, and the fragile line between victory and catastrophe. The battle's true power lay not in the ships that survived, but in the hearts that endured. The sailors who held to their duty when the map vanished, when the night's cold pressed hard, and when the sea's vastness threatened to swallow them whole. Long after the guns fell silent, the lessons endured. Clear communication and the readiness to adapt under pressure can mean the difference between a shoreline held and a shoreline lost. Courage is not a single flash, but a sustained glow that refuses to be extinguished by fear or fatigue. In telling Lady Gulf's story, the emphasis remains not merely on the spectacle of battle, but on the quiet human drama. The captain who steadies her ship, the navigator who reads the wind's secrets, the crew who performs every duty with exacting care, and the countless lives that hang in the balance. When a fleet moves as one under a merciless sun, and a night that never truly ends,